In 2021, the federal government forced all businesses with over 100 employees to force the jab or fire their workforce. I'm curious what your stance was then at that time, and what, if anything, did you do or say to defend medical freedom, and where are you at with it now? So I'm going to give you a minute and a half. And we're going to start, who haven't I started with? Yeah, I'm going to start with Brian Domke. We'll work our way down here, and then I'll pick it up down at the end of the table.
I agree. That's a very important question. So when the Biden administration's OSHA ETS came out requiring companies with more than 100 employees to force the jab or ongoing testing, I was a manager in a local company with a promising career there. I was one of the very few managers that spoke against the intent to enforce that policy. I was not fired for speaking against it. However, I did turn in my letter of resignation shortly after they indicated their intent to enforce. Then, when the Supreme Court made their ruling and struck down the OSHA ETS, I was asked if I would stay and not leave. My answer was no, I could not stay because the owners of the company had already demonstrated their intent and their willingness to comply with tyranny. I said I could not be a part of a company that would encourage and enforce tyranny on its employees. And so I left that company. And I believe it was the right thing to do. And in following up on that, people should be aware that your Board of County Commissioners appoint representatives to the Panhandle Health District Board. And therefore, it's important that you have a Board of County Commissioners that are going to defend health freedom in those decisions. Thank you. Brian Domke.
There were a lot of items that came up during that time, and I had planned to retire sooner than what I had. But when they started to implement travel restrictions, forcing the jab, I stayed. I stayed at Idaho Forest Group. I was the leader of my crew. I had almost 200 people that looked up to me, and I wasn't going to just leave, so I stayed. I fought on the board with the other plant managers and general managers about travel restrictions. It all started, if you remember, it was late February, I believe. Well, Easter was coming up, so there was discussion about you couldn't leave town at Easter to go be with your family. I pushed back on that with the company. I supported my team because they supported me. So I felt I owed that to them. So when it came down to anything to do with the restrictions, forced to get the shot, I don't even take a flu shot myself. I was not going to get a shot for that. But I stayed and I pushed back for my team. They trusted me and I felt that I owed that to them. And in the end, after we got through the rough patches that came with the COVID, I went ahead and I retired. I'd been ready to go before that, but I stayed for my team.
I happened to be in public education during the COVID craziness, and it was nuts. I also happened to be in the military during that time, and I watched a lot of really good soldiers go through chaos. That was also the time that I chose to retire. With that being said, I have a very long shot record of things that I didn't want that I ended up taking, and that was one that, well, I retired. In regards to the importance of who is appointed on the board for Panhandle Health, I would encourage people to look at who this Board of Commissioners currently has on there. One of them is Dr. Thomas Fletcher, and if you know Dr. Thomas Fletcher, I don't know that we can get a better advocate for medical freedom representing Bonner County on the Panhandle Health District Board. Now, in regards to the actions of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners, the Bonner County Board of Commissioners was resolute in preventing overreach, and this was before my time, in regards to any type of mandates, which I think is absolutely appropriate. Further, the legislature appropriately gave boards of commissioners the ability to override any decision of a health district, which was absolutely appropriate. Your medical choices are not mine to make. They are your own. Thank you.
I have been involved with county EMS for over 15 years, and I think I understand the medical questions probably the best out of all candidates here. As I said, I got involved and engaged pretty good with the county in the last 2 years. In the fall of last year, I actually introduced a resolution to the commissioners that stated that the county will not follow any state or federal mandates when it comes to our medical freedoms, that the county will stand against the tyranny. What the commissioners do? They did nothing. Once again, the board says the good things, but when we the people ask them to protect our freedoms and our medical freedoms and make a stand on it, they are doing nothing. And we need to change the culture and protect all of our freedoms. Regardless if it's a right to speak or if it's our medical freedom. And as your commissioner, I will do that.
I'm against any kind of government overreach, and medical freedoms are just one of them. So, as I said earlier, that the County Board of Commissioners do write county codes and county ordinances, and they can help protect the community. I think it's up to the people to make sure that they're electing constitutional people to these offices. With a constitutional County Board of Commissioners and a constitutional sheriff, could you imagine what this county would be like? It'd be unstoppable. No one's gonna penetrate and come in here and try and tell us what to do. And worst case scenario, if they still wanted to try it, why don't we get the local militias involved? We have to protect ourselves. There's no way I am going to stand for any kind of overreach, especially medical mandates. We don't even know what's in this jab yet. It hasn't even been okayed yet. It's still experimental drug. And I can guarantee you that we have not seen the last of it. Thank you.
Same question to all of you. And skip the sheriff. Good thing I have a buddy here.
When COVID came, I can say with 100% surety that me and Sheriff Wheeler were on the same page through that whole deal. He publicly said he will not arrest anybody for not wearing a mask. We supported that. We told Panhandle Health District, pass whatever you want to. You're not enforcing it in Bonner County. We're not forcing we had over 430 employees employed with the county. We told them, if you want to get a vaccination, you go get a vaccination. If you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. If you do not, then don't. We do not have the authority, nor is it constitutionally appropriate for us to tell you you have to do any of that. And we stood on the same grounds on that. And when we were in executive session with our attorneys, how can we defend this? And I said, you guys are scaring me now. You guys have the law degree. Go back to 1898, Marbury versus Madison. Any law passed that is in direct conflict with the United States Constitution is rendered null and void. We fought for you through that whole COVID thing. It's your choice. Nobody gets to tell you how to handle your own medical stuff. That is your decision with you and your doctor. You make an informed decision and do that. We fought for you. We stood for you. That will never change. Sheriff?
Most of you know what happened in 2020 when I sent a letter to the governor and told him we're living under tyranny and told him that we would not be following the mandate, and I asked for him to call the legislature back so that we could discuss this, and those requests were ignored. I and my family got death threats, as you may know. The administrator of Kootenai Medical wrote a letter to the editor saying that if the sheriff needed a respirator, that they thought it should go to someone else besides me and my family. and I've stood up for you. I participated with conversations with the employees at Bonner General because they were pushing back and the Bonner General was refusing to honor their religious exemptions. I have and always will continue to stand up against tyranny and will stand up for you and protect your rights. And if it comes up again, I will be consistent with my principles and my commitment to you and this community.
Thank you very much. And by the way, I'm real happy to hear you guys found that common ground. That was a pleasure.
We find a lot of common ground.
All right, good.
We've
All
got
right,
a-
so
a
let's
fine
go over this way. The same question for you. Where were you at when the COVID thing started? What stand did you take? What did you do regarding medical freedom? And where are you at with it now? And I'm going to start this time with Lady Jane.
Well, I am all about medical freedom. We've home birthed 8 of our 9 children, and our kids are not immunized, and we do that. It's a faith walk for us, not always for everybody, but I'm just saying for our family, it was about our faith. And so I just wanted to bring up Senate Bill 1130, which would have established limitations on the ability of private and public entities to impose a requirement that individuals receive the coronavirus vaccination. My opponent, Mark Sauter, voted no on that, and I would have voted yes, because I do believe that it is not anyone's business to tell you that you have to be vaccinated.
So just to clarify, it's not a vaccine, it's an injection. It's actually not a vaccine. I mean, like Ron was saying, we don't even know what's in that thing, and whatever it is, it doesn't look good. When they started doing all this COVID stuff in the state of Idaho, we started a recall campaign, or we participated in the recall campaign for the governor. And we actually, between my wife and I and the people that supported us up here, we got more signatures on our recall up here than much larger counties. I think per capita, we got more signatures up here than anybody did. We also did things like hold a mask burning party at our store where we had a few hundred people out at our store and we burned the masks. So that kind of tells you how we feel about it. I won't say the whole story about what happened when we thought the mayor of Sandpoint, does everybody remember when the mayor of Sandpoint tried to get like king-like powers? And there were some conversations between Daryl and I about that. I won't say what those were, but we weren't going to comply, let's put it that way.
So during the 2021 end of the world, I still have and did have the Army Surplus Store. And here's what I did there. I hung signs on the front. It said, if you wear a mask, you're welcome, but they are not required. And so I participated in a mask burning at the county fairgrounds. But more importantly, what you can research and look up was back during the last end of the world pandemic, which was the H1N1. Everyone remember that? Dr. Alan Banks, who was a more demure Dr. Fletcher, but also a brilliant man, and I were usually the only two who voted. As a county commissioner, I was appointed to the Board of Panhandle Health, District 1, and he and I were usually the only two who voted against some of these stupid ideas that elitists who think they own your body want to do to you. And I'll just say it out, that's what's going on. And at that point, we lost. We were the only two. I'll hurry. We were the only two, but we came home. I was a county commissioner. We purchased N95 masks for anybody who wanted them in the county and told people if they want a vaccine, go get it, but the county will not mandate them. And that's all we did at the county. We let people make their own decisions, and we made sure that they knew they wouldn't be vilified for making those decisions, but they get to make their own decisions. And that's what I believe. That you're responsible for your body, I'm not.
So I was living in our travel trailer, building our shop house with 4 kids and 2 dogs. And actually December, before all the news broke out, my son and I came down with a pretty bad flu, and he lost his sense of smell. In my chiropractor's office a few weeks later, when all the news hit, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "This is a bunch of fear-mongering by people for political purposes. There's no reason for us to be getting all wrapped up in arms about this." In 2017, when I was in Afghanistan, the flu came through, and all of my kids were sick, my wife included, except one son who ate an orange every day. And he took care of my family while I was in Afghanistan. That flu, nurses tell me that were working at that time, hallways and hospitals were lined with people sick from that flu. That didn't happen with COVID. And so I did not take the vaccine. I was not in a position to require people to take a vaccine. I think the role of government, as Cornell stated, is to disseminate the best information and let people make the choice for themselves. As a biologist, I knew it was dangerous because it was untested. It was hijacking our normal DNA production systems to produce something, and there was no way to shut it off. And we're gonna face consequences for that down the years because of that. So I'm against that. I'm against untested vaccines. Can I be honest with the crowd? I am amenable to real tested vaccines. I think that's a prudent use of our time, but it's for people to make the choice themselves.
And we'll finish with Senator Herndon.
When COVID started, one of the first proclamations of the governor was to make it a crime for you to go to church. And for a while, if you remember, he even had it a crime that if 10 family members gathered for Thanksgiving, well after COVID started, that was a crime as well. So I was one of the lead plaintiffs in a lawsuit right at the very beginning of COVID in May of 2020 that sued him for violating your First Amendment right to gather and exercise your religion. And that caused him to remove that from his proclamation 2 weeks after we filed the federal lawsuit. Senate Joint Memorial 105 was a petition in 2021 of the federal government to request the Biden administration to not force COVID vaccinations on businesses and on federal employees. And Senator Jim Woodward at the time debated against that joint memorial, which was just a petition to Congress. The next year, Senate Bill 1381, which was called the Coronavirus Pause Act, which would block mandated jabs. Jim Woodward voted with only 2 other Republicans and all the Democrats against that bill. He did not want to protect workers and people in Idaho against mandatory jab. I had the governor vetoed that bill, and then a couple more people defected, and the Senate didn't override the veto. We got the same bill back last year in 2023. I supported it, and this is the difference it makes with having the right Republicans there. Every single Republican in the Senate supported Senate Bill 1130 in 2023, and we passed that bill, and it's now law. I would have gone further, and I would have said that we would protect federal workers as well, and that we would also protect anybody from anything authorized as an emergency use authorization, not just COVID jabs.
Thank you very much.